Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I am loving this little die set. This is the outside-in stitched mug, so I know that you have been seeing this a bit on my channel recently, but I purchased this as a change to flowers and butterflies a little bit. So although I absolutely adore both of those items and I love them, I wanted to work with something a little bit different. Now, I have also this Tim Holtz. This is the collector layers, and I really do love these, but sometimes I struggle to use these sort of vintage ephemera bits and pieces. So I'm going to use one of these in today's background in hopes to inspire you or give you some ideas. And if you have some ideas that I might like, can you please leave them in the comment section down below? I would love to see more ways of how you go about using up these, more so in card making, I guess, for me, than, you know, junk journaling or scrapbooking. So most of what I do is usually a little bit of mixed media, but mainly card making. So I'm going to choose this one here to create my background. Now I am going to trim this down just slightly so that it creates a border for my card base, and I'm just sort of picking and choosing. I'm cutting off sort of the bits that don't have as many words and things on them, so just choosing what I would like to cut off. And then just as decoration, you can have a corner punch that does this, but honestly I just go ahead and do a random little snip just as something a little bit different on the edges. Now this ephemera is quite thick, so this is one of my things that I like to do. Sometimes you'll get lucky and the whole thing will peel off, but I just get a sharp point here. This is my pick tool, and these pieces here, they're kind of like heavy cardstock, I guess, perhaps. And just to avoid sort of unnecessary weight to my cards, I tend to like to strip off some of those layers just so that it's a nice thin layer of more paperweight, I guess. Now to create my focal point, I have the Peony Garden paper pad here, and just looking for things that are somewhat going to match. And I just go through and, you know, hold it up against it, see what might work well, see what I could probably use or potentially use. Sometimes it gives me options, sometimes it doesn't give me options, and I think actually I just need to choose something different. But I quite like this sort of gingham pattern here. I think that stands out nice, and it's sort of not too floral. I guess a little bit, as I said, I was moving away from a little bit, and I'm going to go with this one because I quite like it. So once I have sent that through the die cutting machine, I'm also going to cut the center of that little tea bag as well, and it has that little heart on the center. Now I've got a few of my elements that I'm going to put together. This is the Lacey Edges die from Pinkfresh Studios, and I have this one. I have a few of these already die cut in the back, just waiting to go, that I have previously die cut, and I'm going to add a little element onto my teacup just because, you know, it's a little bit fun. Now here's a fun little tip. When I need to cut something super thin like that, I take a little bit of mint tape and I just literally, I'm going to pop it down in place so it's sort of stuck down to my trimmer, I guess. Just because the plastic guard there is actually going to, you know, I won't be able to reach that piece of white cardstock. So if I use that piece of mint tape, it means I can get my nice little cut there, and that is good to go. I can take it off, and then I'm going to thread this through. I only need about half of this actually. I'm going to thread this through the center of my little teacup. Now by all means, you could use a stamp set and stamp on here and white emboss it, white heat embossing on there. That would look beautiful too. But I'm just going to glue this on. And then to help this look sort of a little bit more in place, I'm going to do this for two reasons. One, I'm going to run this back through my die cutting machine with the cup die, the cup of tea die, for two reasons. One, so that it gets those gorgeous dots going through that white piece that I've just added. And two, the pressure of the die cutting machine will also help it sort of all amalgamate and sort of, you know, look a little bit more cohesive rather than something stuck on top of it. So a couple of different reasons for sending it through. If you did the white heat embossing, that would void both of those, and you would also still have those beautiful stitch lines, and it would also look like one. So, you know, that could be a good option, but this also works if this is what you have. And that is my little teacup. there is a little tea bag that comes with the die set, which I'm also going to have. I'm deciding where I want some of my words. I'm deciding how I want things to look. And this is just what I do. I shift things around. I sort of, move them up, move them down, have them in place. If they look right, it's, keep going forward. But if they don't, then I just sort of, ponder and try a couple more things. Or I will put it to one side, do a different element, and come back and make the decision in a little bit. Now, here's the little tea bag, and I'm going to run this through with a little piece of scrap cardstock that I had there. Then I have the green heart that I run through earlier. Now, this is just a little stitched heart that is in the center of the tea bag, and it doesn't die cut, so I'm just going to fussy cut it out. You don't have to do this at all. It's just an extra little step, and then use my tweezers to pop it in the center of the little tea bag there. And then I had to do this in my last one as well. I don't have any white twine or a little bit of string, and the tea bag die has a little slot there that you can pop the string through. So actually I'm just going to separate these two layers again using my pick tool, and this will do just fine for the string that will attach the tea bag into my tea cup in this case. Now, you don't have to do this, of course. You could even just draw in a string as well. That would work. But I think this looks pretty cute, and it's always nice to have that little element of string there as well. Now, the background. There are a couple of things I can try when I'm not 100% sold on the combination that I've got put together. And so the background here felt a little like it just needed something. And so I have got some of my vellum. This is the Lawn Fawn vellum, which is actually a pretty heavyweight vellum. You can do heat embossing, like hot heat embossing on all of this. You can run this through with embossing folders, all the good things with this vellum. So I love it. And this is it with 2 layers of the vellum put together. And that would really mute the background. This is it with 1 layer, and that would tone it down for sure, and I think, just take away a little bit of it. So I was deciding whether I wanted 1 or 2 layers of the vellum. Even with the 2 layers, you can most definitely still see the vintagey background. You can still get the gist of the colours, and you can still see the text and roughly what it is. Of course, if you raise the vellum up, that also makes it trickier. It makes the vellum appear more opaque rather than translucent. Lots of good tricks that you can try to sort of, get to where you want to go with the look of your card. So then I have these little pieces of steam, which I have die cut as well. This is the Let's Celebrate word dies from scrapbook.com. And I'm going to use the Let's Celebrate. And so I am going to take some of the same green cardstock here, put a little bit of double-sided adhesive. I use the Sizzix permanent adhesive sheets. The Stick It double-sided adhesive sheets are also fantastic if you can get hold of them. They die cut beautifully. And then I'm just going to run this through with the Let's and the Celebrate words. There is also the shadow part of it as well. Now I am actually going to run through the words 3 times, well 2 times in white and 1 time in green, so that I can really bulk these up a little bit. And then I'm going to run through the shadow die just 1 time in the white cardstock. Then, because of the double-sided adhesive that is on the back of all of these, it's a really swift process to just stick these all down. Not too fussy because the letters aren't too small, but, a little pair of tweezers or reverse tweezers are fantastic here as well. And then the long words are really easy to go together because that's just all one piece that you can, stick down. Once you take off the release paper, we can just pop it down. And there was one little piece where I didn't have adhesive cover behind it, so that's why I used a dab of glue behind there. And then it's just a matter of sticking everything down. Again, take off the release paper, stick it down, and that little bit of extra layer is going to really help this stand out off of the background, which it is kind of a busy background. Even though it's muted, it is a little bit busy. So we really want to be able to see the sentiment to stand out. And I think we're on a good track so far. So let's get all of this put together. I've sort of done all of the elements. I've got my sentiment ready to go. I've got my focal point ready to go. I know where I'm heading with my background at this point. So now we're at the assembly sort of part of the card. I have a little bit of my vintage photo distress oxide ink. I'm going to rock around the corners and the edges of this just quickly, and because I took away that other layer of the cardstock, that brown ink is going to seep in quite nicely. And then from here, just because I had gone around the brown with the ink, I decided that for the teacup, I would take a sort of greeny colour, grass green. It doesn't match perfectly, but just a little bit of ink to go around the edges here. Really, truly, not very much at all. Just a little finishing touch. Even though it's not perfect green, I do like the little edges just not being quite so white anymore. And that finishes off the teacup. Now, as for adhering the vellum, there are a couple of ways that I could go about this, and as usual, you need to be a little bit crafty with adhesive and vellum. And a couple of ways. One, I could just hide the vellum behind, the adhesive on the vellum behind my element. So I have quite big elements, so it's going to, there's going to be plenty of area where I'm able to adhere it. And I know it's not going to go anywhere, but another option I have would be to adhere this down using some little brads or using some eyelets or something like that. So I'll think about that for a second whilst I adhere down my little tea bag. I'm going to pop this up on some foam tape. So I just trapped the little string in there behind some of the foam tape behind the teacup, and then I have cut the vellum down so it is exactly the same as my Tim Holtz, the ephemera that's going to go behind it. So I'm just lining everything up on here, and I did snip off the little corners of the vellum. Everything's going to match nicely. I have the sentiment that's going to go down the bottom. I have my little pieces of steam, which I actually die cut 3 times, and again, just so they have a little bit of dimension and they stand up just a little bit. Not quite as much as foam tape would, but just a little bit more off the page. And then my teacup is going to go right in the center. Now, of course, you could have stamped a sentiment directly onto the teacup. I actually did get a stamp set to go with this, so I would have something to go with the cup of tea. But I think the Let's Celebrate with the matching the greens is good too. It just means it's versatile and we can use it for another occasion. So once I have got that part put together, then I'm going to adhere my vellum to the ephemera, and I'm going to choose to use some brads because I don't have an eyelet setter, but it is on my maybe list, I will admit. And so all I do is just go through, I just double up a little piece of foam tape there so I can poke holes into it, and then I match up the holes with the ephemera, poke a little hole, and then I give it a good wiggle so that I can get the brad through nice and easily. And these are sort of some brassy looking brads, I guess, and I think that sort of, just goes with the nature of the ephemera that we've chosen for the background. It's also nice to be able to flick through my stash of little, beads and ephemera and brads and things like that, and find uses for them that are all going to, mesh together nicely. Anyhow, I will always leave links to everything down in the description box down below. I also have a link to my snail mail address in case you would like to send me a card in the mail. I also have my website address down there, natashafootecreative.com, and there are some card making classes. There are a whole lot of other videos that won't be on YouTube. They are just for my website. And there's also some free resources, some free printables, some sentiments and things like that over there if you would like to go and check that out. We're just going to put a couple of finishing touches on this card, and that is going to be gluing down the little steam pieces that go up the top. These little steam pieces actually make a really cute love heart if you put them together more, bring that top one down a little bit. So that is also a little thing that I might play with in the future, but that is my finished card for today, and I really like this one. A little bit different for me, which I like, but along the same lines. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, bye.